So the other thing we wanted to hit now, free agency's over. There's still some offseason to be had here. There's always a post-draft move. Some players are going to get released. Depth charts are getting crowded. Some people are – there's a second wave, third, fourth wave of free agency still to go. But through the draft now, Sam, who's your favorite offseason for any NFL team?
Yeah, so I think there's, again, few teams that would be in conversation for this. The team that I would say have done the best job overhauling their team, their roster, their everything, their organization this offseason are the Chicago Bears. Let's start right at the beginning, right? They go into the offseason, they need a new coach. They get the prize. We don't know if he'll be good yet, right? We haven't seen it. Who knows? But teams have been trying to get Ben Johnson to be the head coach of their franchise for a couple of years now. And every time he's been like, no, I'm going to stay in Detroit. We've got work to finish. The Bears got it done. The Bears were able to get Ben Johnson in the building to be their new head coach. Number one, he's the sort of the prize of the head coaching carousel. Number two, I think specifically for Chicago, it was a good move as well, because you've got Caleb Williams with a relatively underwhelming rookie season after such incredible hype as the number one overall pick. The weaponry that they assembled around him last year didn't quite work the way we expected it to. So Ben Johnson comes in. He can work with Caleb Johnson. In free agency, they then set around completely rebuilding that offensive line. Ben Johnson's been working with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in Detroit. They trade for Jonah Jackson. They trade for Joe Thuney. They bring in Drew Dahlman from Atlanta at center. That's theoretically 3 new starters on the offensive line, or at least 2, with Jonah Jackson being a little bit more of a question mark. They then bring in Grady Jarrett, a couple more players in free agency for other positions. But that's a huge amount of the offensive line rebuilt. And then they come into the draft. I think they have a nice draft as well. I didn't love it. I think the longer it went, the more I sort of disliked their picks a little bit. But the top of the draft, right? Coulson, Loveland, potential game changer at tight end as an athletic receiving weapon, somebody that could, replace what they lost in Keenan Allen as he moved on. Luther Burden, we talked about as well, one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. He can be a dynamic player. Ozzie Trapillo, the offensive lineman from Boston College. So I just think from top to bottom, this is a team that's taken several significant steps in the right direction in one offseason.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially the offensive line overhaul and what they were able to do to invest there. And part of that offseason is Ben Johnson. I know you accidentally said Caleb Johnson there, Caleb Williams. I know what you meant. In case anybody tries to correct you, Sam, we know it's Caleb Williams. But we have also, really quick on that, a recent history of a lot of QBs making a year 2 jump. A lot of QBs. Joe Burrow did it. As I forget everybody that did it. Josh Allen took till year 3, but Lamar Jackson won the MVP in year 2. Like, there was Mahomes was his second year, was his first year starting, but second year after getting drafted. Caleb Williams, I think, is more set up. Look, we thought he was in a good situation last year. I think he's in a better situation this year, especially with Ben Johnson calling the plays. So maybe it's cheating, because I think my best offseason, also a team with a rookie quarterback, that's the Commanders. And so it's a bit of a cheat code, because you can go nuts in free agency, go nuts on the offensive line, but you also have to take advantage of that. And I think the Commanders have done that. They flip a 5th for Deebo Samuel. They make, I think, just a really creative move to get Laremy Tunsil at left tackle. It is difficult to get tackles right now, right? The Patriots drafted Will Campbell. We saw Membu. We saw Kelvin Banks all go in the top 10. Josh Simmons, maybe a steal at 32 for the Chiefs. But none of those guys are sure things. You know what you're getting in Laremy Tunsil. And they got really creative in trading multiple draft picks to go get Laremy Tunsil. And so that's an aggressive move to go get 2 star players in Laremy Tunsil and Deebo Samuel while you have the funds, right? You have the freed up money with Jaden Daniels. But then you pair it with the draft. And again, normally I love high volume drafting, but they've been aggressive. They brought in Marshawn Lattimore last year and gave up some picks. But I like the draft picks too, because you bring in Josh Connerly at tackle, who I think at worst becomes a developmental option, but he's competing at right tackle. Trey Amos at corner. You have a guy competing and maybe insurance for Marshawn Lattimore. Even Jalen Lane as just a pure one of those speed receivers to add a different dynamic to the offense. So for a a draft that only had 5 picks, I think they also did a really nice job, in addition to all the other aggressiveness, right? They were aggressive, therefore had to punt on a whole bunch of draft picks, but I still think it's a pretty good haul for those 5 picks. So an aggressive offseason, again, for GM Adam Peters. And by the way, bringing back Zach Ertz, bringing back Bobby Wagner, those were the subtle moves he did last year, bringing those guys back for, on 1-year deals, bringing them in on 1-year deals, now bringing them back on 1-year deals. So really like what Adam Peters is doing in Washington and taking advantage of having Jaden Daniels as a first contract QB.
Yep. I think they've done a good job too.
We did want to get to the undrafted free agents. Any other off seasons though, really quick? Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now.
The Patriots, I think, would be pretty high on my list. I'd go to bat with the Patriots. I thought Vrabel was a good hire. Right now, we can quibble about whether he's at the Belichick coaching tree or not. Vrabel disagrees. What does he know?
I'm with him. I'm with Vrabel. He's not part of the tree. Like, he agreed with what I said. He never coached for Bill Belichick. He's not part of the coaching tree.
Either way, I like Vrabel as a hire for the Patriots. I think they've done a really good job, again, rebuilding. They sort of swung for the positions of need in free agency, right? They tried to get Chris Godwin. He took less money to go back to Tampa Bay. They were aiming at some of these really acute needs for them. They didn't quite get it done. And then they've sort of put themselves in that difficult corner of needing to chase positions in the draft. But I think they've done a really good job doing it, right? They got Will Campbell at number 4 overall at the top of the draft. It's a position that everyone thought they would pick for basically the entirety of the process. They got it. Travion Henderson at 38. I'm not sure I'd have gone there given the other needs, but it's a good pick. It's a player that should make a difference for them. Kyle Williams in the 3rd makes it all right because Kyle Williams could have been their pick at 38, and I would have loved that. Jared Wilson, a center from Georgia, later down in even the 4th round, or still in the 3rd, is a great pick. He could start in that offensive line sooner rather than later as well. And then again, Braden Swinson was one of my favorite picks in this draft. So I think they had a great draft in addition to some good signings in free agency, which didn't necessarily fill their biggest weaknesses, but they got that done in the draft. And the totality of it all, I think, is a really good offseason.
Yeah, a defense-heavy free agency with Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, and offense-heavy top few picks in the draft, and it's a completely different team. I mean, they've overhauled that roster in an offseason. So what did we just list, Sam? We just listed the teams that had the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft last year. So
very true,
right? And it's not a coincidence. They're able to overspend on a Milton Williams or spend on a Carlton Davis or make all the moves that the Commanders and Bears just did, as we said. So they're at least using that advantage, right? They're using the advantage of the quarterback. The last team I just want to throw into the mix is the Arizona Cardinals, and they're not on first contract quarterback, but their defensive line, their defense situation, just the defensive side of the ball was so bad. And every year, because we review every game, right? If you guys are just here for the offseason, Sam and I, we preview and review every game during the season. That's our thing. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, we're going through every single game for about 3 hours. And every week with the Cardinals, it's like, man, previewing them, they don't have enough defensive talent to compete. And then they'd compete, right? They'd get feisty over the last couple of years with Jonathan Gannon. But now they have some talent. And they've added Dalvin Tomlinson and Walter Nolan and Josh Sweat and Jordan Birch. And last year, Darius Robinson and Calais Campbell's there. Like, man, this defensive line, or defensive front, we'll say, way better than it was. Will Johnson in the secondary as well. So I don't know. We'll see how it works. But I think a defense that needed an influx of talent, they at least have it on paper between free agency and the draft. So I like a lot of what the Cardinals have done this offseason.
Yeah, good offseason. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.